quickly officially open the meeting because I've got a problem of load shedding here before I'm cut off. Hello, Alan Tebogo. It looks like we're cooperating.
Good morning, Chair. Yes, currently 7 members on the platform.
Okay. Let me quickly officially open the meeting because I've got a problem of load shedding here before I'm cut off. The meeting is officially opened. Let me welcome all the members present here. Welcome team from Treasury, support team from Parliament, media. You are all welcome. Let's move to the next item. Apologies.
Chair, just Mr. Sarapun has got a doctor's appointment at 9, so he will be joining the meeting at 10:30.
Okay, that's the apology. Let's move to the business of the day. Noxie, are you there? Honorable Abraham. I will have one requested here to chair in the meantime. While but she seemed to have logged in, Alan, Honorable Abraham.
Yes, she is in, Chair. I'm just trying to get hold of her on the phone quickly.
I can see her in the platform here. I don't know why she can't hear me. Noxie, are you there? Okay. Let me, in the meantime, because I have a serious problem here of network and load shedding. Comrade Murolong, can you chair in the meantime?
Well, I can chair, although I have a bit of flu. I can, if Alan can flag the agenda for me to make it easy for me to proceed with the meeting.
Yeah, Noxie will join you. I don't know what's happening, but she has logged in. For some reason, she can't hear us. So please continue in the meantime.
Chair, I've just spoken with her. She is on, but she's having difficulty with the microphone, so she's trying to sort that out quickly.
Okay, I'm in. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, okay, okay. Fine. So are you sharing?
No, I was saying I'm a bit fluish. If you don't mind sharing, you can proceed. But if you have difficulty, to just conduct oversight activities there. Can carry on, Alan?
Please do
And
carry
then-
on.
Yeah, and then there's the delegations here who was there from Parliament. You can check if your name is there and it's written properly. And from Sasria and from the Land Bank and the FFC. Those are the list of people that we met. Number 3, we've got the overview of Sasria. Just go back a bit. So this one explains that one of the main reasons we went there was to deal with the issues that they were facing with the July unrest and the liquidity and solvency challenges that they were facing as a result of the claims that were put by people who had their properties damaged and so on. And we went through all those issues. Carry on, Alan. They also presented their annual report. They also presented their strategic and annual performance plan to the community. I'm not gonna go through all of it here, and these are the focus areas that they have. And then here, these are the impacts. You can carry on, Alan. And then they talked about the impact of the July unrest to them, that the claims totaled about 37 billion, and they had already paid out 22 billion in April when we met them, and they were left with claims worth about 14.6 billion, which represented about 17,000 claimants. So the issue with liquidity, they couldn't pay some of the money until the National Treasury offered the money, which was 22 billion as well, and they also get another 9 billion from the insurers that they claim from. And we also talked about labor issues. At Sasria, they don't have a union, and the employees seem to be happy. So we didn't face any issues of staff, union, and labor of that kind. The Land Bank, which we visited on the second day, also was experiencing a serious problem of liquidity and funding challenge. The Auditor General had recommended to us that we visit and we heighten our oversight over the Land Bank because of the issues that they were facing. Because from the beginning of 2020, the Land Bank started having trouble because of the credit rating downgrades from the credit rating agencies. And after that, then one of the lenders, when the Land Bank was downgraded, started asking for the whole amount of the loan to be paid back. It was 1.3 billion. And after that, all hell went loose because there was this cross default that took place. And then the Land Bank couldn't pay some of its creditors since then. And then it went into this default position. And ever since then, it has been negotiating with lenders and trying to find a liability solution, which when we got there hadn't been finalized yet. So that's what we talk about there. So there was also an update on the status of the annual report, the corporate line, and so on, because they have not been submitting these things. Because they got an exemption not to submit the corporate plan from the Minister of Finance when they started to be in default. So they were exempted to submit the corporate plan. They were exempted also with their annual reports. They did not submit until they cure the event of default that they are facing. But what they actually developed was a stabilization plan, which they have been implementing. And so those were the issues that were discussed there. Just go to key developments and challenges. Alan. So the committee has been following this thing, the negotiations, in 2019 already. The Land Bank had a disclaimer of audit outcome in 2019, which was issued by the AGSA. In 2020, they got a qualified audit because one of the SLA partners, service level agreement partners, did not give them the information that was required by the AG to confirm the loan book of about 31 billion rands. So as a result of that, they had the problems of being qualified. You can carry on. So we also talk about what happened when they started to be in this event of default, and you know, the challenges that they started facing, because some of the good customers left and went to the commercial banks to lend money there directly, and they started to have the problem of non-performing loans, to face all those problems. And with the SLA partners, they started facing problems of concentration because they outsourced their loan book and they didn't have much control on it. So those are the issues that were discussed there. Carry on, Alan, can go down. Yeah, carry on. Exactly, stop there. And then we also talk about, since they had all these problems, the land bank as well has been receiving a lot of help from government. It started by receiving 3 billion in 2019, and in 2020, then it received, during the MTBBS, a further funding of 7 billion, which was to be given to it over the medium term. It was going to be 5 billion in 2022, 1 billion in 23, and 1 billion in 2024. Carry on. So when it received that money, then it started paying down all the lenders and decreasing the debt. When we got there, they said their debt had decreased by about 28%. And also capital. So they've taken down all their debt down by 11 billion rand. And they are no longer issuing out loans to the farming community. They are just collecting now all the money back so that they can pay back the lenders. So they are no longer engaged in their business activities because they are waiting for the liability solution to be accepted by the stakeholders, which is their creditors. Let's carry on, Alan. We talked also about the audit action plans that they have, and they explained that because of the qualified audit opinion, they've insourced some of the work that was done by the SLA partners. They've insourced all their loan books to be done internally and so on. And they took over the one that was controlled by Unigro, where they had several problems with. And the only amount that is left with the SLA partners is about 2 billion rands of the loan book. Yeah, can carry on. Go down, Alan. So they explain how the intermediary model worked, that they gave out work to the SLA partners to conduct the credit function and recover the monies on their behalf. And then they will compensate them by paying over administration fees to cover their operating costs, but they will also pay again some profit share, also pay again some legal fees and so on. So there was all this kind of duplication of fees in this. So the board explained that they found that system there it had been introduced about 10 years ago, but then they were working on insourcing the work. You can carry on, Alan. Carry on. At Land Bank, there were labor issues. Were also addressed by the union there and HR. There were many issues that were raised, especially by the union, the issues of low staff morale and the issues of bargaining, no increases of salaries, and so on. So, and just carry on, Alan. So they raised all those issues, and the 2021 salary negotiations that commenced in March 2022, they had been referred to court, to the CCMA for arbitration, and they pleaded with the committee, and the committee interacted with them, telling them that they cannot instruct what the Land Bank should do on those labor issues, but members really urged that they find each other on issues and try and resolve them. And then we went to the FFC, which was one of the shortest visits on Friday. So the main issues why we went to the FFC was also the issue of audit opinions. They received a number of unqualified audit opinions with findings, and they were struggling with compliance with legislation. So those were the prevalent issues of supply chain management and consequence management. Over the years, there is no year where we have not had all those kinds of issues from the FFC. Non-implementation of audit action plans, those were the main issues. So we received an annual report, annual performance plan presentation from the FFC. Carry on, Alan. We also received the presentation of previous year audit outcomes and the action plans, how they will be implemented now. The main issues, carry on, go down, Alan. I'll just go to the main issues. The main issues at the FFC were issues of high staff turnover. At the FFC, there has been about 6 CFOs in the past 7 years, 7 CFOs in the past 7 years, and there's been about 4 CEOs. So those are the main issues that even the AGSA always highlight when he talks about issues of non-compliance with legislation at the FFC, that he has never seen an area which has such a high turnover of executive officers in it. So those were the main issues, the high turnover of staff. And there's no union there at the FFC, and there were no much labor issues except for the payment of bonuses. And the issue that the employees who wanted to be unionized, they had to comply with the Labor Relations Act. Then we go to committee observations. Then I suggest we go through all of them so that members can assist here with adding issues that they found that they are not there. So here is just on 17.1, it's just explaining why we went to Sasria, Land Bank, and FFC, and main issues at Sasria and Land Bank were issues of liquidity challenges since the event of default, and Sasria since the July unrest. The FFC were just negative audit outcomes that were there and high staff turnover. And we start with the observation that Sasria, the committee notes that Sasria has faced enormous challenges of liquidity and solvency as a result of the July 2021 riots in parts of KZN and Gauteng provinces. This led to Sasria being unable to submit its 2021 integrated report and annual financial statements for the year ended 31 March 2021 as a result of material uncertainties surrounding its going concern status. 17.3, the committee welcomes that Sasria received support from the fiscals of 22 billion rands and also received payments of 9.5 billion rands from the reinsurers. These funds were transferred to Sasria before the external auditors confirmed that they were able to finalize their audit opinion at the end of February 2022. So this capital injection from Treasury assisted really with their accounting solvency in terms of the going concern status. Sasria incurred claims of 37 billion as a result of the July unrest. When the committee met Sasria in April 2022, it reported that it had paid out the claims of about 22 billion rands to about 8,853 claimants, and it outstanding claims of 14.6 billion from more than 17,000 claimants. The committee commends Sasria for the manner in which it handled the whole situation, including announcing timelessly that it will accept its liabilities, thus assuring the market. The committee calls for the expedited resolution of all valid outstanding claims, especially affording some special assistance to insured smaller businesses who may struggle with quantifying their claims. Because we told that since the amount that is outstanding is for 17,000 claimants, because the smaller players, they struggle to quantify their claims, unlike the big companies. So here it's just a recommendation that they should find some special assistance of helping those who cannot finalize their claims. The committee believes that there needs to be a wider public awareness campaign by Sasria in ensuring that smaller businesses and households in general understand the value of its insurance cover as a monopoly provider of such type of insurance. Because what Sasria said to the committee was that sometimes people don't take Sasria, although they have insurance. When they are asked whether they want to take Sasria insurance, they don't do that. So the committee, when it was engaging, it said that Sasria needs to be out there to have this kind of public awareness, that if there's riots and stuff like that, they can be covered. 17.6, it's the committee notes that while the cash injection from National Treasury in January and the increase in premium flows ensure that there is no immediate liquidity challenges, and that Sasria's financial projections have indicated that it will become profitable again by end of this financial year. There remains concerns about the sustainability of Sasria should an event of the magnitude of the July riots occur again. So that's the main issue. There's still issues of sustainability in Sasria. If something like what happened in July occurs again, they said clearly that Sasria will shut down. Committee notes that there remains a political risk in South Africa, and this has affected its reinsurance risk premium for Sasria, as premiums for reinsurance have grown by 1,000% following the July unrest. So they did explain this, that when they go to Lloyd's Bank or wherever in London to reinsure, they get charged 1,000 times more in premiums now, which has become so expensive that they have to increase them. This is because of the political risk that is residual in South Africa, because they cannot assure the markets that that event can't take place again. So despite 17.8, despite the calamity of the July unrest, the committee notes that Sasria appears to be managed and governed very effectively and efficiently. Some of its performance highlights are that over the past 10 years, Sasria has paid a dividend of over 11.1 billion to the shareholder, South African government. In 2021, Sasria collected gross premiums of 2.7 billion versus 2.4 the previous year. Has also made investment income of 806 million as opposed to 257 million in 2019-20. Sasria has also achieved unqualified audit opinions for several years, though some are with findings in some years. The committee was particularly impressed by the succession planning and handover of the outgoing CEO to the incoming CEO. The committee believes that other state organs can learn something from this on filling strategic positions calmly. And then you go to the land bank. If there are any issues that the members think that I left out on Sasria, they can note them down so we can add them later. The land bank, the committee notes that the land bank is still in default on its liabilities since the event of default in April 2020, which is exactly 2 years now. Since then, the land bank has been negotiating with lenders and developing a liability solution that is aimed at curing its default status. The land bank was exempted from submitting its corporate plans until it cures its default position. Committee notes, however, that a stabilization plan was developed and is being implemented. 1711, the committee welcomes the appointment of the new board by the Minister of Finance in December 2021. The committee believes that this board should expedite the implementation of the stabilization plan and urgently finalize the liability solution. The event of default at the land bank followed after a downgrade of the land bank's credit rating in January 2020. This followed by a mandatory redemption of 1.1 billion credit facility from one of the asset management companies, led to the current cross-default situation. The committee notes that although there has been this default standstill, all lenders have not called the land bank to settle its debt and thus have to liquidate its assets in order to settle their debt. This has enabled the bank to service its interest payment and reduces debt by 28% or 11.4 billion since the default. The committee notes that as of 14 April 2022, when it visited 13.4 billion outstanding debt at matured, so was due, but then the whole debt of 28.9 billion was also due as a result of the cross default clauses. And of all that debt, only 1.5 billion of it was guaranteed by government. The Land Bank received an equity injection of 3 billion in September 2020 to deal with its debt crisis. The Land Bank used this to pay out its debt. It has received further recapitalization of 7 billion. The committee believes that these equity and capital injections will enable the Land Bank to finalize the liability solution and to resume its lending activities to the cultural sector for the current planting season. 17.15, the committee believes that the current negotiations on the liability solution should be finalized during the financial year in order to enable the Land Bank to resume with its lending activities during the current financial year. The bank has not been supporting its clients' funding needs as there's been no loan disbursed since the event of default. The committee believes that the outsourcing of work that the Land Bank can perform through its employees should be reviewed and curtailed. This talks specifically to issues of its SLA partnership, where the Land Bank has outsourced its loan book to intermediaries, which then expose the Land Bank to what can be viewed as duplicate fees. In this regard, the committee notes that some SLA have been cancelled or not renewed, and the work has been insourced. The committee strongly believes that the bank should not outsource its primary activities to intermediaries, as this exposes it to a number of risks, including credit risk, where you find this increase in non-performing loans, and concentration risk, where you find that you lend to the same group of people. That's concentration risk. The Land Bank received a disclaimer of audit in 2019-20 and a qualified audit opinion in 2020-21. The latter was as a result of the refusal of one of the SLA partners to provide information required for the verification of disbursements and repayment on the loan book of about 31 billion rands. So this is a cause for concern for the committee. The committee urges the board and the Minister of Finance to ensure that such instances do not recur and that the audit action plans are implemented. The committee will continue to exercise closer scrutiny on the implementation of the audit action plans across the finance portfolio, including at the Land Bank. 718, the committee calls upon the Minister of Finance and the National Treasury to ensure that the business and funding model of the Land Bank is reviewed in order to ensure the Land Bank's sustainability. Among others, the committee will request to be briefed by the Land Bank and the National Treasury on the implementation of the recommendations of the Trust Commission of Inquiry into provision of rural finance services. This is the report of 1996, which was written by a presidential commission, the Strauss Commission. The committee believes that the development and transformation mandate of the Land Bank needs some blended financing strategy, which will be favorable to up-and-coming farmers. The financing should include grants rather than expensive funding sourced from the capital markets. 719, the development and transformation mandate of the Land Bank is very crucial in ensuring that there is transformation and development of black farmers and that there is food security. In this regard, the committee requires the Land Bank to supply it with plans to support transformation and development of upcoming farmers. The committee notes that between December 2018 and February 2020, there were acting CEOs and CFOs at the Land Bank. The Land Bank CEO resigned in April 2022, and this will again result in another acting stint in that critical portfolio, as the recruitment process is often delayed. The committee once again call upon the board and the Minister of Finance to ensure that critical positions at the bank are filled expeditiously in order to ensure leadership stability. Lastly, the committee engaged with SASBO, the recognized union of employees of the Land Bank. The committee notes the concerns raised by the union on issues of staff morale, lack of salary increases and incentives, and the disputes that the union has referred to the CCMA. The committee believes that SASBO, the board, the executive management of the Land Bank need to find each other and seek to resolve disputes amicably before resorting to the courts. With demoralized employees, the Land Bank is unlikely to implement an effective and efficient turnaround strategy. On the FFC, you highlighted the role of the FFC, that it plays a very crucial constitutional role, which includes advising government, parliament, provincial legislatures on fiscal issues. Its mandate is sourced from Section 220 of the Constitution and makes recommendations on equitable share allocations and revenue, government guarantees, provincial taxes, municipal fiscal powers and functions, provincial loans, municipal loans, and so on. And the provision that establishes states clearly that all legislation referred to in the above sections of the Constitution may be enacted only after any recommendations of the Financial and Fiscal Commission have been considered. So the committee is therefore very concerned that recommendations made by the FFC during the budget processes are sometimes reportedly not considered or ignored. The committee therefore calls upon the Minister of Finance to ensure cooperation, particularly between the FFC and National Treasury. This may involve also relooking at the manner in which the FFC receives its budgetary allocation in order to ensure its independence. Committee notes that there have been high leadership instability at the FFC. This is exacerbated by the fact that the current CEO is suspended and that there's been high turnover of CFOs. In the past 7 years, there's been more than 7 CFOs and 4 CEOs, including in acting capacities. The committee calls upon the Minister of Finance to heighten his oversight over the FFC in order to ensure leadership stability. Lastly, over the past few years, the FFC has received concerning audit outcomes which the Auditor General of South Africa has said are caused by leadership instability, failure of management to monitor compliance and with the PFMA and Treasury regulations, inadequate implementation of audit action plans, and failure to implement proper controls in order to ensure that annual financial statements were accurate. There has also been issues with irregular and fruitless and wasteful expenditure. The committee will be monitoring progress in the implementation of the audit action plans presented to it in February and during the oversight visit in April. That's it. Thanks, Chair. If there are any issues that members need to engage with, then we can.
Okay. Honorable members, there it is. It's our report, basically. Thank you so much, Dr. Hlophe, for taking us through. It's Sasria, Land Bank, and FFC. Honorable members, I think we must not confine ourselves to a particular institution or organization. We can talk through all of them because at the end of the day, honorable members, we were there. This is our report, and it has been well structured. and well represented and well presented by Dr. Hlophe. If I can check hands, if members want to comment or change anything in the report. Can I see hands, honorable members? Thank you very much. Well done, Dr. Hlophe and your team. In the absence of
there is a hand from Honorable Shivambu.
Oh, Honorable Shivambu,
Yeah.
can you talk? Thank you.
So thank you very much. I want to talk to the Land Bank report, because that is the oversight which I participated in. Because I thought there was a serious consideration, which even when the chairperson of Land Bank responded, agreed to, in principle, that there should be serious consideration of the legislative reconstitution of the Land and Agricultural Bank of South Africa, because in the manner that it is constructed now is such that it does not play any developmental role in terms of development of agriculture and in terms of what happens. But also there was a legitimate concern that was raised about the demographic representation in the loan book of Land Bank. I'm not seeing that in the report that is presented here in terms of what happens. I think that those views have to be expressed there. Whoever has compiled the report might be having different observations, but those issues is what was discussed in the Land Bank meeting. And that is one, but also I would think that we should have further engagement with the Land Bank, because the chairperson of the board, the new chairperson of the board, conclusively agreed that the best solution to deal with the perennial problems of Land Bank is to reconstitute it into a development finance institution with direct appropriation from Parliament, instead of it going to the capital markets to look for what inevitably will be very expensive money. That almost always excludes development agricultural finance in the manner that is expected to be. So, and I think that discussion must not be swept under the carpet. It must not be ignored. It's issues that have been raised. Reports is not an expression of opinions. A report means that you write what was discussed and what was deliberated upon, and all of those issues that we are raising now were raised in the deliberations in Land Bank, and I don't know why they're not finding expression in this report. I don't agree that this report is properly compiled. It is clumsy, and it mixes all the institutions as if it's one report. It's, yes, one oversight, but there should have been a separate land report, the draft, and then there must be SASRIA there, and then FFC there with the, but to speak to all of them on top of each other causes some degree of confusion in terms of what happens. I think those issues about Land Bank chair must be looked into much more concretely. Thank you very much.
Chairperson,
Thank you.
I don't know if I can say something here.
Okay.
If I can say something, if Honorable Shivambu can assist me, because I heard the way he expressed those issues. If you can assist by drafting paragraphs of those issues, because yeah, I think they are covered, but not exactly in the manner that he expresses them. Maybe it might be because the way he expresses them, he understands them better. That's why when we give the report, we also expect members, if they see that something that they said is not properly represented, they'll raise their hands and say, hey, this is not the way we said it, you know. So if Honorable Shivambu can assist with drafting these paragraphs on the Land Bank issue, because it does talk about the issue of financing, that you need to have some grants in the system, like blended financing and so on. And on the issue of legislative reconstitution, if you can just also expand on that in writing in that paragraph, I think that can find a way to, because I know it was discussed. I know it was discussed in that meeting. But as for having 3 separate reports, I don't know, it's the first time we're conducting oversight with the finance committee ever since I joined the committee. So, but what I'm used to is that when you do an oversight report, I think it's all clearly demarcated here. That now we're talking about the land bank, now we're talking about Sasria, now we're talking about the FFC. But it's up to the committee to decide on that, on if it wants 3 separate reports. But normally when we write an oversight report, we just normally have sections that deal with each of the issues that we're dealing with. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Mr. Shope. I was also going to say, is within the report, I think it's fair enough what I remember assisting with the drafting of the areas where he feels the committee is not covering sufficiently. For instance, I saw that there is an issue or a decision on an interaction between Treasury, Land Bank, as well as the committee. So I think some of the areas need to be covered in that kind of meeting. However, it doesn't stop the honorable member, Honorable Shivambo, from assisting the content advisors in terms of the drafting. However, I wish to also indicate that the way it is written, I think it is agreeable that we have the reports as they are, as an oversight report, but I still maintain, honorable members, that the report is well written because there is a distinct report on Land Bank, on Sasria, as well as a report on FFC. And remember, honorable members, that in all the institutions that we visited, we addressed similar issues. And I think having it, and also we do not want to have a situation where for one oversight report, we are given different dates by Parliament. And therefore, for me, the way it is, yes, as according to the input by the honorable member, it does need to be touched up, but staying as it is would be preferable. Honorable members, what is your take?
Chairperson. Oh, I'd raised my hand. Can I proceed?
Honorable Skosana, and Honorable Skosana first. Sorry, comrades, honorable members, I had accidentally muted. It will be Honorable Skosana, Honorable Shivambo, and Honorable Morolong, in that order. Thank you so much, members.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Honorable Chair, and greetings to all honorable members, our support team, and everybody in the meeting. Yeah, well, I think I agree with you, Chair, that I think the format of the report, I think it's fine, because I think there's a demarcation to say now we're dealing with issues of Sasria, now we're dealing with issues of land bank, now we're dealing with issues of FFC. I don't think we've got, like Honorable Shivambo is saying, that putting issues on top of issues of one institution on top of the other. No, I think there's a clear distinction that on this part is dealing with the issues of this particular institution with recommendations, and then here we're dealing with the issues of another institution. So because it was one program, though carried in 3 different days, but it was one program of oversight. And I think it makes our work easier when we have to go back and report to the National Assembly, because it will just be one report. Unlike if we were to separate them, I think it would be cumbersome, because it means we will have to have 3 reports that we must go and present and debate on them and so forth. So my view, I think it's the way it is, the format of the report, I think it's fine, because it's one report, but it makes distinctions to say now we're dealing with this particular issue, this institution, now we're dealing with this other institution. Well, the other point that Shibambu is raising, I think a point of emphasis in my view. I think some of them are issues that they are raised in the report, though perhaps they might appear not to be raised perhaps in a mild manner. So I think Honorable Shibambu want a more emphasis on those particular issues. So I think if, like Dr. Chope requested, if I think he can, I think Honorable Shibambu can also assist to say how do we perhaps better coin them. But I think are issues that they do appear in the report. But I think Honorable Shibambu is just emphasizing to say, let us emphasize here, let's just emphasize here, let's just emphasize here. But in the main, I think those issues are covered there, Chair. Thank you very much, Person.
Thank you, Honorable Skosana. Honorable Shivam.
No, thank you very much, Chair. The report is not properly written, and from a programming point of view, the other responsibility that we sit in the programming committee. If we check, I'll use an example of the current program for this year, for this week and the coming week. So the PC on Higher Education, Science and Innovation is going to be tabling a report on the oversight visit to Stellenbosch University, and it's specific. But when they left Parliament to oversight, they could have gone to Stellenbosch, to UWC, but those reports must be presented separately, all of them. And then the PC on Agriculture will be presenting a report on the visit to Perishable Products Export Control Board. But when they left, they went to different spaces, not just to that institution. But whenever a report is tabled for programming purposes and for Parliament consideration, it must be the Standing Committee on Finance report on the visit to Land Bank. And then it deals with those issues. It can be to Land Bank, to Sasria and FFC. I'll give you an example, Chair, that because I was not in the FFC visit or Sasria visit, and possibly would not want to express an opinion or disagree with some of the issues that are there, but I agree with what is in the Land Bank report. You can't then now force me to then consider the 3 reports all at once. It doesn't work like that from a programming point of view. I'm sure even if we can seek advice from the committee chairpersons, or the chair of chairs will advise that reports must be presented one by one in terms of, and considered one by one in terms of the institutions that we have visited. It can be the same content, but let's just put the proper demarcation that it's a report on the visit to Sasria, there's a report on the visit to Land Bank, there's a report on the visit to FFC, even if they happen during one trip, but the reports must have to be separated. And in terms of the issues of consideration that we say it must be looked into in terms of the legislative reconstitution, but also the concern around the demographic composition of the loan book of Land Bank. We will submit the written submissions to say that this is how the phrasing should be in terms of what happens. And perhaps before we table the report to Parliament, I'm sure the committee can then express if that is a reflection of some of the issues or what we understood to be some of the issues, because I'm 100% sure that the chairperson of Land Bank Board did express a very unequivocal support for the legislative reconstitution, because if it's not just a financing issue, there is no legal framework or legislative framework currently for Land Bank to could be given direct financial injections from any of the departments, except when it's a rescue mission and everything else there. But that is what we're dealing with, that if we want it to play a developmental role, it must be legislatively reconstructed so that it receives direct appropriation with a clear mandate of developing small-scale farmers, particularly Black people and women. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Shivambu. I think, honorable members, in all fairness, we should maybe seek advice from the parliamentary officials that work with the legalities of programming, so that we do the right thing. We're not necessarily opposing what the honorable member is raising. But I think seeing that the report is drafted as it is now, we just need to be clarified as to whether it is precise the way it is, or we are bound to change it. Because I think the issue of the absence of some members in some visits, for example, has an impact in terms of how legal will the report stand. Honorable Kenny Morolong.
Well, thank you very much. Well, I have absolutely no qualms with either or suggestions. Perhaps what we can do to try and reconcile them, Chair, is that the fact that the report has been presented in the format in which it has been presented, and we've allowed the presentations to ensue without objecting to the format, may then necessitate that we adopt the report with the proviso that or subject to seeking requisite legal advice on its format. We may even venture into discussing or rather adopting a report per visit, which I have absolutely no qualms with, so that we're on the safe side, so that we do not delay the process of the adoption of the report, especially in the wake of the fact that you yourself are raising a concern about some members who may not have been part of this oversight visit or that, and then become part of the overall adoption of the report. I think we can still do that in the same meeting. And I'm going to suggest that we don't necessarily have to have Honorable Shivambu drafting a paragraph, because then it would then propel us to return to the meeting and adopt the report anew. There are a few issues, and as Honorable Skosana has pointed out, most of the issues that the Honorable Shivambu have raised are matters of emphasis. There are not many. We can deal with them point by point. He doesn't necessarily have to draft a paragraph. And if there are points of disagreement, we say, no, we disagree on this one.
And so we obviously would allow the committee to express itself whether it was to adopt the report with those amendments. I don't think that there's a need for us to procrastinate on the approach. I suggest that we deal with them point by point. We agree. I mean, I fully agree with the issue of the demographics. I was amongst those who spoke quite strongly about it. If we think that is mildly captured, we can deal with it. The legislative framework, if we think is mildly captured, we can deal with it. But if you look at the issues raised, they shouldn't really make us disagree profusely in the manner in which it looks like we are. I'm suggesting, Chair, that we adopt the report subject to legal advice, and we can do it visit by visit, so that if Honorable Shivambo, Honorable Morolong was not part of the visit, they do not express themselves on it. But we're at a point where we can't, even as we seek legal advice, delay the adoption of the report further. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, honorable members. I think as a basic agreement, we note from what the members have said that maybe Dr. Hlophe and his team need to look at his comments and see where the emphasis, the comments that is making. Number two, we need to agree in terms of the proposals that I hear members making here, that we vote each visit, Sasria separately, Land Bank separately, and FFC separately, so that at the end of the day, we vote the entire report with the people that were part of that particular visit, so that if it comes to a push and that the legal advice talks to issues of separate committees or separate reports per se, we do not necessarily have to come back here and open the discussion all over again. Okay, can I hear from Dr. Hlophe whether there will be no difficulties with what we are resolving? Dr. Hlophe?
Yes, thank you, Chairperson. It won't take even 10 minutes or 15 minutes to separate the reports, because even the way that we have structured it, we say, okay, this is what happened at Sasria, this is what happened on the left, and FFC. Just to take that and put it as separate reports, it won't take even 10 minutes for us to do that. But on the issues that Honorable Shivambo raised, especially on the issue of the reconstruction of the bank and so on, there is a proposal that is there in, perhaps you can work around it to try and develop it. Especially, it speaks to the issues of, if you can go to the report, Alan, if you can just upload the report. And perhaps while we're uploading the report, you can also advise us, because you have been in the committee the longest, on how do you normally do these reports? Did you do them separately per visit, or did you do them in the manner that we have done here? So on the issues of the land bank, there is somewhere where we talk about in the recommendations. Just go down. There is somewhere where we talk about the issue of the commission report the Strauss Commission. That's the issue that raises, actually that report, which raises issues of funding, that there should be grants and so on. So that's why I raised it as something that still needs to be presented to the committee so that the committee understand clearly what was proposed in that Strauss Commission report, because when it was discussed there at the meeting, it was clearly said that some of the recommendations of that report were never implemented, especially this issue of funding the land bank. So that's one of the issues that we stated clearly in the report. The issue of reconstitution, Honorable Shivambu raised it very well, but if you can just maybe help us with clearly articulating what he was raising there in the meeting. Thanks. Advocate Jenkins is here as well. I don't know if you can say something on how the report should be structured.
Okay, sorry for that. Frank, you can come in.
Thank you, Chairperson and honorable members and colleagues. Chair, the issue, the committee has in terms of the rules, the committee can report the way it decides to report. The issue that is now before the committee, I think it is actually important if we want to relook at the legislative framework of the land bank. A separate report would then be good because there will be specific recommendations attached to a specific committee report. It won't be in the combined report, but it's really for the committee to decide how it wants to report. That's not really a legal issue. If we want to relook at the land bank, one must sort of program the idea forward to say there will be a committee report. The recommendation therein might be something that the House must either ask the minister to relook at it, or the committee itself must look at it like we did with the Public Investment Corporation and have a committee bill to restructure that, even though there was also a commission going on at the time, the Party Commission. So to get the ball rolling, to relook at the legislative framework in which the land bank operates, my suggestion is to have a separate report for the land bank, to make a specific recommendation that the House then will adopt. And that recommendation can be either that the department must relook at it, or the committee needs to look at the legislative framework and review it with either a view of instructing the minister to do something about it, or with the view of introducing amendments to the legislation itself, as we did with the PIC. But you need a House resolution to kickstart that process, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Frank. Honorable Shivam, is that your new hand?
Yes, Chair. Like I think that actually, like on proper recollection is that when we did the committee bill on the PIC, on the Public Investment Corporation, it was after a visit which included visit to the South African Reserve Bank and to National Treasury as well. And the report was never that all of it is combined. It was separate reports. And on the PIC one, there was a committee decision that let us introduce a committee bill which will make the following amendments and all of those things. And then there was public hearings, and then the legislation was amended and adopted by Parliament, which was initiated by the committee. So I would honestly believe that we need a separate report for the land bank, and with due consideration of initiating at a committee level the legislative process to reposition the land bank into a development finance institution that is going to empower everyone else. And at the center of this, Chair, is the fact that the current framework of land bank is that it goes to borrow money from private institutions in order to go and give to the agricultural businesses. And the manner in which that has been working thus far has benefited predominantly white farmers, more than 80%. Maybe because of the requirements of collaterals and all these other demands that come with privately generated capital. So there's never been a grant system that is systematically administered by Land Bank, which could otherwise empower a lot of emerging farmers, particularly black farmers. And the chairperson of the board illustrated, actually even the CFO illustrated that the people who have been defaulting is those who are assumed to be the most experienced in agriculture, and that the black and emerging farmers have not defaulted in the little loans that they got to be exposed to. And the only solution to could deal with that is to have a development bank in the agricultural sector that has got a direct appropriation, but if it can generate some additional income from private lenders, it can still do so, but there must be a component that is clearly stated in law that this is an institution that must finance agricultural development for particularly black people and historically disadvantaged individuals in South Africa. So that is the essence of it. And of course, we can introduce that legislation and then get the Land Bank to come make submissions, because the chairperson of the board said that in their first meeting, there was unanimity amongst the new board members that the only way to save the Land Bank is to reconstitute it foundationally in terms of what happens, because the current model is not sustainable. It does not work in the manner that is appropriate. I think that is one of the issues that we must have to look into. So I would think that in the report, it must state that there is consideration of legislatively reconstituting the Land Bank, and that we're going to have public hearings to consider all the views. And I don't in that basis, then we'll be able to adopt a separate report of the Land Bank oversight, and then we'll see how we take the other issues forward. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, I'm sorry for the delay. Honorable members, I think with the input from the honorable members, and as well as the advice from Mr. Jenkins, judging also by the comment by Dr. Thope that it is not going to take them long to separate the three reports. But considering the legal advice that we just received, with the inclusion of the constitution or the legislating around Land Bank, we just need to give the drafters a bit of time. I think, honorable members, it would be fair to say that in tomorrow's meeting, before we get into the business of the meeting of tomorrow, we can present the reports. I mean, Dr. Thope can present the reports separately. That cannot take us more than 10 minutes. That the reports be tabled separately, and then we adopt them separately, and we done with that. I do not want us, unless honorable members feel otherwise, I do not want us to adopt part of the report and not the other. Can we agree on that, honorable members?
Yes, seconded, Chair. We can process it tomorrow.
Okay.
Agreed, Chair.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, honorable members, and support. Honorable members, in terms of today's agenda,
Chairperson, before before you carry on, which means if we're given until tomorrow, then I'll have to liaise with Honorable Shivambu on the sections that he wants, especially the issues of emphasis. They're the ones included in the report. So I will make contact with him on those issues, so that tomorrow we don't spend another time debating this issue. Yeah.
Yes. No. I think so too. I thought that was going to be part of my conclusion as well, to say that so that we save time in tomorrow's meeting, do have that interaction. And I'm sure Honorable Shivamu will also appreciate the fact that it's not that your report was clumsy as such, but it's just that it was in one condensed report, though the institutions were separately reported upon. I hope you'll have pleasant discussions around that as well.
No, Chair, we don't take these
members?
issues. We don't take these issues personally, Chair.
Good.
We just draft as
Good.
Chair. Thanks.
Good. Thank you very much. That's a very good one. Thank you so much, honorable members. Thanks for your inputs. And I want to thank the parliamentary support staff for the work that they have put into this discussion as well. Honorable members, please bear in mind that because tomorrow we shall start with the adoption of today's report, we have to log in on time so that we are able to deal with it and then get on to tomorrow's business. Thank you so much. The meeting stands adjourned.
Ms. Abraham, sorry, there's a second item on the agenda. I'll just reflight the agenda quickly.
Adoption of the report. Okay, what is the second item I have? Do I have an old agenda?
Ms. Abraham, it's the consideration. There's an amended A list of online is Advocate Van Schoor from National Treasury and obviously Advocate Jenkins from Parliament. And then it's just to relook at the report that the committee adopted on the 18th. You'd remember that there was to be additions to the report based on the information that the minister would send through in his letter, and that's been captured in the report. So it's just to relook at that as well.
Okay, so is Dr. Hlophe still going to take us through that one?
There's not much to add, except to highlight a few issues if he adds, if Alan puts the report on. And we went through this report last week, and it was adopted with a provision that will add the letter of the minister commenting on the amendments to the bill, because as a Section 77 bill, if it gets discussed in the committee, deliberated upon, and there are changes on it, then the minister has to comment if he agrees with those changes and if they have any impact on the fiscus and so on and so on. So this is just the letter that the minister wrote to the committee on the same day that we discussed this issue. And it talks about these proposed amendments to the insurance levies bill. I don't know if I need to go through the letter or not, Chairperson. But it basically says the minister notes these changes that have been recommended in all the sections that we went through last week, and he supports these amendments. Just go to the second paragraph, Alan. To the second, yeah, here is it. I hereby acknowledge the proposed amendments to the levies bill made as a result of the submissions made by the stakeholders during the parliamentary public hearings on the levies bill, and hereby submit the following comments on the substantive proposed amendments in terms of Section 11 of the Money Bills Act, and so on. So these are the clauses that National Treasury took us through last week and were adopted by the committee. So that's it when it comes to this report. I don't know, but was there a section, Advocate Jenkins, which had not been included in the amendments?
Okay, you can come in, Frank.
Thank you, Chairperson. There were, Chairperson, after the meeting last week, National Treasury realized that there were some typographical errors on the A list. There was a inadvertent omission of one of the redrafted sections in the bill, Chair, and I'm not sure if MP or my colleague Advocate van Schoor wants to go through it, but Treasury corrected that in the A list. The report itself, there were not further damages or corrections that needed to be done to that, as far as I know, except for the letter of the Minister, Chair, that we had to include.
I see National Treasury wants to say something. Momo.
Good morning, Chairperson.
Good morning, Chair and honourable colleagues. Let MP Advocate van Schoor come in, but I think both the esteemed speakers before us from Parliament side, I think, have noted what the issue was. That there was a technical correction, and we just wanted the committee to note the letter from the minister, so we just get it all right process-wise. But I'll let Advocate van Schoor take over. Thank you, Chair.
Advocate van Schoor.
Good morning, Chairperson and other members of the committee. Yes, just to explain, the A list contains an amendment of clause 10 of the levies bill that deals with amendments to the schedules of the act, the process that needs to be followed, tabling in Parliament, and so on. So the A list that it served before the committee replaced the entire subsection 10.1, while it was only intended to replace 10.1a to d. So we made that correction in the A list that I understand the committee secretary circulated, so that the A list only replaced 10.1a to d, so that E still remains. And E is the last part of the process where after Parliament has considered the amendments, then the minister must gazette it, those amendments. So the amendment to the A list actually was just a change to the introductory part of what we are replacing by specifically referring to 10.1a to d, and not to remove paragraph E as well. Thank you very much.
Okay, I think, thank you so much, Alan. I think we took a risk in that meeting and trusted Treasury to let the minister write and sign the letter. And indeed, they have done as they had committed. So yes, that part of the work was already adopted pending the submission of the letter by the minister. Is that correct, Dr. Hlophe or Alan?
Chair, if we can put up that paragraph that had been omitted, just to see if it has any substantive amendments, or is it covered in the letter that the minister wrote? If Advocate van Schoor can just take us just directly into that section.
Thank you. You won't see it because that line in paragraph 1 says on page 7 from line 11 to 22 to omit paragraphs A to D. Now, in the previous A list, we indicated the entire subclause 1 is replaced by paragraph A to D. But there is a paragraph E in the bill that deals with the situation after Parliament has processed the amendments, which says if Parliament approves or adopts amendments to the amended schedule as tabled, the schedule so approved or adopted by Parliament must then be published by the Minister in the Gazette, and the schedule takes effect on the date of publication in the Gazette. And that paragraph, we never intended to remove it. It was, or proposed to remove it. It should stay in the bill. So all the paragraphs that are amended is paragraphs 1A to D and not E. And the introductory part that we had in the A list that served before the committee last week actually replaced the whole subsection, subclause 1, which was a mistake. Thank you.
So it will be a paragraph that the stakeholders had a chance to comment on.
Yes,
That
it was in the original bill that was tabled.
Okay.
Sorry.
Chair, there's Advocate Jenkins on.
Okay, come in, Advocate Jenkins.
Thank you, ma'am. Just for clarity, that part that was inadvertently removed and that's now back where it belongs in the bill, there's no need for the minister to comment on that. It has no fiscal implications. It's really a process issue. And it was in the original bill, so there was public participation on that. Just for clarity on that. Thanks, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you very much. There being no other takers, I hope it's the real last item now, Alan.
Yes, Ms. Abraham, that's the last item on the agenda.
Yeah, so yeah, once again, thank you so much, honorable members. Let's meet bright and early tomorrow, just before maybe 8:45, before the start of the 9 o'clock meeting, so that we can deal with today's business and finish off, so that we give tomorrow's meeting the time that is allocated for it. Thank you so much, honorable members. The meeting is adjourned.
Thanks, Chair.